Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Your Town Matters. I'm joined today by the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte, John Craig. Thank you for being here today, John.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'd love to start off by talking about what we're calling Exit 56. It's definitely showing the growth of the Eastern Charlotte area in terms of being a place where businesses might want to develop. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, at our regular council meeting, our deputy mayor put a motion on the floor for our CAO, Jason Cadet, to engage our engineers to get the pricing of what it would cost to expand our water and sewage out to Exit 56. That's why we call it the Exit 56 motion. And Exit 56, for those that don't know what that is, it's the area out there by Tim Hortons, Subway, Boyd's Highway, out in that general direction towards that exit to go off to St. John. There's a lot of land out there, a lot of properties out there, and there's a lot more we can expand and put more housing out that way. So we want to send a message to all the businesses and companies that want to build in Eastern Charlotte that we're serious and that we're moving ahead. That's why the motion was made, so that we can send the message to all the companies that they can start their planning if they want to put bigger stores into the area, they want to move to Eastern Charlotte, they can start planning on it. It'll take 2 to 3 years before all will come to fruition, because it takes a bit to get your engineers' studies. If we have to buy property, if we have to test, do test wells, there's a lot to it. And then at the end of the day, once we do get the studies, we have to lobby our different levels of government to get a partnership with it, because no one municipality will be able to afford that on their own. And so if we can get, most projects are a third and a third and a third, and so that's what we would be going for once we get to the point of having our studies all done.
Okay, and this serious infrastructure development, I know you probably can't get into specifics, but does it come from businesses expressing interest in growing in Eastern Charlotte?
Simple answer, yes. and that's why we want to move ahead. We have a person that works for us, and he's our sort of a project manager for us at Glenn Hawkins, and he's had discussions with different companies and businesses, and they're thinking about moving to either Eastern Charlotte or expanding in Eastern Charlotte. And I don't want to name any names because I don't want to put any pressure on any companies or because of competition reasons, but we know that the talks have begun. And so I guess the first step for council is to let the businesses and companies know that we're serious and we're going to move ahead with it.
A lot of communities in New Brunswick, silver lining to COVID, saw a lot of growth in terms of people wanting to be in more rural parts of the world and in our beautiful province. Are you still seeing that in Eastern Charlotte in terms of population growth? Does it seem to be a place that families are moving to?
Absolutely. We're finding it more and more. Our biggest issue is housing, and we are working on that. And I think it's important that we have one person that's working for us, as I said, Glenn Hawkins, who's constantly working with different development people who want to develop in Eastern Charlotte, want to build apartment buildings. There's a lot of them really on the cusp of getting ready to go. And but with Glenn working with these companies, things are moving ahead a little faster because things aren't being dropped. We're taking some pressure off Jason, our manager, so that Glenn can focus on these while Jason does the day-to-day running the Eastern Charlotte. And but we're finding that people do want to come to Eastern Charlotte.
Which leads to another topic,
Sure.
which I often just refer to as the farmland topic at Eastern Charlotte. It's been in a lot of recent council meetings. Can you give people who maybe haven't watched council in full the last few months just an overview of what the farmland issues are when it turns to also into residential developments?
Yeah, we have I'm not sure if the council's divided on it, or I know some councils are strong on it, and some are so-so, and some are, and the farmland issue is some people, some of my councilors want to protect farmland in Eastern Charlotte, because once it's gone, it's gone, and I understand that. I mean, if you take an area like, I'll use this as an example, Sussex. You go up the road to Sussex. They still have nice farmlands and all that sort of thing, but they also got Walmart. They also got Superstore. They got the big drugstores, and they're expanding all the time. And Sussex lost one of their main employers up there with the potash mines closing down up there, and they're still growing and getting bigger all the time. But at the same time, the farmlands, we drive up there, you see all the rolling hills and how pretty it is and gorgeous up there. So I think working hand in hand, I think we can make that work to be able to protect some, and at the same time still have businesses come to the area.
And when you say council's divided, what seem to be the two main stances on the issue?
It's hard to say the divide. Some are very strong and some are not so strong, but I guess the issue is that we have to grow, and we have to be able to build housing, have housing, and we have to have the businesses come. So it's once you start building on those properties, then it no longer becomes a farmland. So I guess that's what, once it's gone, it's gone. I'm not taking a side on the issue, but I'm just saying that some councillors are strong and some aren't, and some are. But at the end of the day, we'll look at each case as it comes forward. I guess as somebody wants to develop in the area, the council will weigh each one individually.
So the fear would be, from the farmland perspective, that if you divided up some of that land and it became more residential, that it could impact the way of life for people that...
That's some of the council's thinking, yes. Yeah.
And then the flip side would be that it's about accommodating population growth.
Exactly, that's right. Exactly. I mean, for example, if we look at Exit 56, if you're going to put millions of dollars into expanding water and sewage, you want to be able to have housing and business at every step you can along the way to help pay for it. So, there has to be a balance.
Where is council in terms of coming to a resolution on what should be done?
As I said, they'll take each case individually. So as somebody comes forward with an idea, or wanting to protect an area, or wanting to grow, or to expand, or rezone, I guess is a better word, the council will look at each one individually. So.
Okay. Last council meeting, you had a presentation by Mark Driscoll, who is a consultant regarding security for communities and different businesses. I was actually at St. Stephen Council this week, and he did a presentation there as well. A lot of that has to do with the fact that policing, especially the RCMP presence in rural communities in southwest New Brunswick, there just doesn't seem to be the same presence that people were hoping there would be. And as we see crime go up, as well as a lot of our homeless populations in some communities too, there is a need for more of a presence in the community. That's a lot of the sentiment expressed by residents, not just in Eastern Charlotte, but here in St. Andrews, in St. Stephen as well. Can you tell people who missed council what Mark Driscoll's presentation is about, and if council is considering some of the things that he put forward?
Mark is very good, and he's got a great background in policing, and it's coming along at a time when the crime rate has come up in not just Eastern Charlotte, but New Brunswick and probably Canada too as well. And not to put blame on RCMP officers themselves, there's a system whereas we're supposed to have so many dedicated officers, but because some of those officers may be out sick or out maternity leave or in court time, their time is taken away for actually being patrolling in the area. So the numbers I think are a bit down, but not blaming the officers individually. It's just the system the way it is. But saying that, the people want us to act or do something what Mark brings to the table is different ideas and different things that we could look at. He's offering, and it's hard for me to do this in a nutshell because he talked for about an hour, and for me to give you a 2-minute answer is pretty hard. Mark is actually better at talking about this than I am. But council is thinking about some of the things he is talking about. We have referred it to our Public Safety Committee, which is chaired by the Deputy Mayor, David Hatt, and the committee is going to sit down with Mark and come up with some different ideas and different things that can alleviate some of the crime in the area, and some things that we can afford and some things we can't afford, and we'll look at it and see and pick the trouble spots where that we can fix right away. And what will happen next is that the committee will report back to council with recommendations.
Okay.
But like I say, Mark is very good, and we're very lucky to have Mark in the area to be able to do this for us.
I know he does extensive work with security at La Pro. He did seem to mention, though, that it could be an array of solutions. Could be as simple as putting more cameras in the downtown area, or it could be as intense as maybe hiring your own security, I don't know, personnel for the community, which could be costly, but ultimately when there's a lack of RCMP presence that people are feeling, is that a solution? I don't know. But what are your thoughts on some of the ideas he put forward?
I think some of his ideas are warranted. I don't know what we can afford at this point. Our last budget was done by the province, and we have to do our next budget. But if he was talking about maybe having basically security officers who can't detain and they can't stop people from doing, unless you're actually doing the crime. At that point, then they probably could get involved. But all they can do is report. They can watch and report and call the police and make sure the police get there quicker. I guess it's sort of having a presence on the street. People see, okay, these people are walking the streets. They're getting out of their cars and talking to the business owners, and just having, so people understand there is somebody out there watching at the same time. So I think there are some things that Mark brings to the table that is warranted and we do need, and we have to look at. Cameras, like you said, is important. St. Stephen and McAdam, I had meetings with them a couple of times a month, and they swear by them, saying it's a great tool. It's not the end all, but it is a good tool to have. It helps the RCMP, if something does happen, to be able to recognize who it is or be able to figure out the timeline when it did happen. So,
there was a meeting for RSC 10 on policing priorities for the coming year for the RCMP, and I know that more presence in the community was one thing that was discussed heavily, as well as this concentration and this comes from St. Stephen, McAdam, St. Andrews, Eastern Charlotte, on repeat offenders. It seems to be that there's a few people in each community that they do find are the repeat offenders. Is that something that you see in Eastern Charlotte as well? I
think so, and I can say it all comes down to basically one thing, and it's the drugs in the area. Meth being the number one drug that's finally made its way to our area. It's been here for a while. I'm not saying it just got here, but it's been here for a while. I guess it's just that issue has gotten bigger and it's created more issues with homelessness, with more crime in the area. This is something that started off in the States, came over to British Columbia, and it's made its way across Canada. And across Canada, they haven't solved it yet. It's not going to get any better, and I hate to get on TV and try to scare people, but that issue's here, and there is no end to it for a while that we know of. Because if they haven't solved it where it began, and it's gotten worse there, we don't expect it to get any better. We just have to be able to take care of the people that are the law-abiding people, and making sure that things are done.
With drugs, sometimes that goes hand in hand with a growth in unsheltered populations. We're seeing this across southwest New Brunswick. I've never had to speak about it so intensely and extensively as I have in the last year with different municipal leaders. What in Eastern Charlotte are you seeing in terms of the unsheltered population? Does it seem to be growing? I know that there are many community solutions being put forward, but what is the actual?
We're not quite as bad as St. Stephen, I don't believe so, but we do have some in our area, Eastern Charlotte, absolutely. I don't know the exact numbers. If I sit here and say there's 6, and somebody's going to call up and say, well, there's 10. So I don't know the names individually, but I do know we have our share in our area, and is it going to get any better? I can't say for sure if that's going to happen, but it definitely is in our area for sure. And to be able to do anything about it, it's a tough call, because I was involved with we had a warming area this winter when we had those extreme minus 40 degrees weather for a 2-3 day weekend. We opened up the St. Mark's Anglican Church, and I was involved with that. Our council didn't do it, but the community did it. And some of these people had to be persuaded to come out, to leave their shelter, to come out of the woods, to go into a warmer area. We really had to be persistent to get them to come out. That's their home. They don't want to be moved out. That's where they're living, and some of them want to be there. Whether it's to do with mental illness, I have no idea, or if it's just because that's what they want, and you can't force people to do anything. And they have rights too. They're people, and but as a community, like we have the hub now, who once a week is having meals for people, and it's all free. It's just if you can give some money to it, and when you come in, that's great. If you can't, that's all right too. So the community is coming together, and they're seeing a need for all these sort of things that you didn't really need a need for 10-20 years ago, but now it's becoming more and more all the time. And it's not just council is involved with this; it's the community. There's different community leaders, whether it's the hub or the Anglican Church or the different churches. Everybody is working together and trying to work with the issue as it comes along.
Faith Avery made a presentation last council meeting about the hub. I think she said they were serving at times over 200 meals an evening. It's
wonderful what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. I've never been able to go there because it's the same night as when council meets. so I'm going to have to take a few minutes before the council meeting and try to get there, because we meet. People think we just meet once a month, but we don't. We're meeting almost every week. But when I go to the meeting, which is the Macadamic place, I have to go by my office to get there, and the place is just cars everywhere. There's people everywhere, and it's just great what they're doing for the community. It's a need that they saw that we needed, and they stepped up and are making sure that it happens.
I've been meaning to go try the hub. I've definitely had meals at Neighborhood Works in St. Stephen, Shiretown Community Services in St. Andrews, and it's also a great opportunity to just break bread with your neighbors and get to know people from the community that you might not sit with or cross paths with in other ways. But I always can't help but think too that so many of us that would think of ourselves as people that go to work every day, it's harder and harder to get by with inflation.
Oh my goodness,
and it just seems like living an average life is becoming more and more of a challenge.
Absolutely.
Are you feeling that from residents of Eastern Charlotte? When we couple that with the price of gas right now and food, I can't remember a time in my life where it seems so challenging just to get by from paycheck to paycheck.
It is, and it's getting. Is it in Eastern Charlotte? Absolutely. It's not easy. It's those on fixed incomes is really tough. The price of groceries and beef and everything, gas, all the basic qualities that we need, all the basic things we need have gone way up. So it's made it hard. It's hard for a one income household person. Almost you need those two incomes coming in all the time to be able to make a go of it. So it's not easy. It's not. But it's not just Eastern Charlotte and New Brunswick thing. It's I think it's nationwide.
Because we're getting close to our end time, I'm going to pivot ungracefully to another topic, which is all-terrain vehicles in the community.
Sure.
Can you give us an update on that from Council's perspective?
Yeah, Council did 2 readings of that, and then we're having I think it's June 6th. We're having an open night where people can come and talk about it if they want to express their opinion on the bylaw. The bylaw is available either online, or you can just drop into the municipal office and pick up the bylaw. It's not very long. It's basically, the basics of it is just that from the on-ramp out there by Birches, right down the main street of St. George, right out to the what they call that opening there where the where the walking trail is. There's a big opening where you can go across the highway underneath the highway. That's how far it will stretch. As long as the side by sides and four wheelers do the speed limit, they're all legal. They have all their what they need, their stickers and all that sort of thing, readily showing, and they're part of the ATV trail system. As long as they all have everything done legally and they do the speed limit, we're allowing them to use that. And they have to go single file as well down the street, and they have to stay over to the right as much as they can. They can't go on the sidewalk, but they can stay over to the right so they're not doing traffic. And we're hoping that this will be a help out the businesses in the Eastern Charlotte area, so that we know there's a lot of four-wheeler clubs and stuff like that this is what they do, the same as snowmobile clubs. They'll travel to an area, they'll stop and have something to eat, purchase stuff in the area, whether it's gas or whatever have you. And we want to try to put an influx for the businesses in the area, even the hotel. People may want to stay overnight at the hotel there. So this is something the council wants to try. It's being done in other places of the province successfully. To say, are you going to get rid of all the ones who still break the laws? No, you're not. You're still going to have those people. But I'm hoping that the people that actually want this to happen and do follow the rules and regulations will speak to the ones that are acting crazy on their four-wheelers and speak to them. Not to go after them, but to speak to them and say, you shouldn't be doing this because you're making us all look bad, and you're always going to have those ones that will do that. But anyway, council wants to move ahead with this and try it. It's, like I say, once we get the bylaw done, we're going to make sure the signage is done, make sure all the permissions are done. There's going to be a lot to it, and it'll be enforced not by public safety for the province of New Brunswick. They have a different crew of enforcement officers that will come to the area and try to enforce it, along with the RCMP. So those two working together will help with this as well. And council will monitor it. If it becomes a real problem, we'll revisit it if there is real problems. We're hoping there's not, and we're hoping it's as successful as it is in other areas.
One of the biggest growing pains with amalgamation, this is province-wide, is having to rewrite bylaw after bylaw to encompass the whole area. I know that Eastern Charlotte, from the municipalities that I cover, you were the first to address dangerous and unsightly premises.
Right.
Can you tell us the status of that bylaw for Eastern Charlotte?
Yeah, same thing as the ATV. We've done 2 readings, and the council is very serious about moving this ahead, and it will be done. It's not so much for the town of the old town of St. George and the village of Blacks Harbor. They've always had that bylaw in place, so it's not really any pressing issues inside those areas. It's more so for the outside areas, the old LSD areas, where the issues have not been dealt with over the years. So now it falls into our area now as Eastern Charlotte. So we have the Service Commission who have been signed up. We have a contract with them, which we signed last month. They'll be doing the enforcement of it once the bylaw is passed, and then we'll be coming out to take care of these places that are unsightly and dangerous. And it's very important that we do it. I mean, we look at St. Stephen, for example. Just this past week, there was a fire inside a home has been closed up, and the person perished inside the fire. And if you don't do anything, people are going to say, "Why didn't you do something?" So this is the reason why we are, because dangerous. You get people moving into these properties that shouldn't be there, and it's dangerous to begin with, and they don't meet the building codes. There's no water, no electricity, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, the place catches fire, and we get a problem, or somebody gets hurt really bad on top of that. It's something, and it's not about. And I'm trying to alleviate it to some people think it's because, well, you let your grass grow too long or you got pink peacock decorations. It's not that at all. What it is it's like when you drive by a place and they got old abandoned cars been sitting there for years, or washing machines and dryers and all those things sitting on the front lawn all over the place, and those are the places that will be targeted that will have to be cleaned up. So I mean, if you haven't started cleaning it up yet, I would advise you to maybe to start, but the Service Commission, these guys will be coming in, contracted by us to do it. It won't be ourselves locally be doing it. Be an outside firm who will be doing this, to making sure that it's enforced, and it will be done.
And that's, I guess, one of the biggest hiccups of amalgamation is that every bylaw that if Eastern Charlotte wants to enforce has to be rewritten to include the whole community.
Exactly, and we're not doing bylaws just here and there. We're just picking ones that we know that there's problems and the people want us to do it. The unsightly and dangerous, people have come to us and said, we want you to do that on the outside areas. They said, we want that in place. So we're not going to do something until the people say, we want you to do it. We're not, there's so much work for us to do. We'll pick and choose what bylaws we'll come up with and put, but we'll do it with talking to people, making sure that people are happy with it. We're not just going to willy-nilly pick up bylaws just to put more rules and regulations on people and their properties. We're doing it because people have asked us to do it, and then we'll move forward with it.
Well, thank you so much for today's update, and I hope to have you back next month after the June meeting. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for having me.
My guest today has been the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte, John Craig. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Your Town Matters.